Yeah.
So thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to present from the Enchant project, which I've been coordinating the last 3.5 years. So we are in the last 2 months of the project. And this slide here gives you the overview of what we were doing. So the point of departure was that there are a lot of behavioral interventions into making citizens more energy efficient that have been tested in laboratories and small scale pilots. So behavior scientists have done a lot of research. How could people be influenced? What kind of communication measures work? And what we wanted to find out in the Enchant project is what happens if you scale up these communication attempts. So we wanted to find out, do they still work when we use them not on a handful of people or hundreds of people, but millions of people? We wanted to find out which communication channels we can use to get these out. So we wanted to work with both municipalities, but also energy providers and NGOs, and test if different communication channels have different effects. And we wanted to see also which of the interventions and intervention packages that were testing work for which group of people in our population there. And then in the end, we are now creating a web tool. We call it now the Enchant Wizard, which is a tool designed to give, for example, municipalities a way to target intervention campaigns to certain groups of people. So what the tool in the end should give you is that people can, in a way, diagnose with answering on a very limited number of questions what kind of people they are, and then the tool would recommend you, okay, these kind of people, they would, for example, respond well to what we call a social norms intervention, where we tell them what other people around them do. Or these people here, they might respond well to a competition. So we tested 7 different intervention types in the project: information, giving feedback, communicating social norms, but also different ways of framing the problem as either an individual problem or a collective problem, and so on. So we had a number of different interventions that we wanted to test, and we had different user partners, as I said, and we also looked at different behaviors, which are very much in line with what you presented before. So we looked at energy efficiency investments, like upgrading the insulation standard of a house or buying more energy efficient appliances, but also household heating, transportation, cooling behavior, and more everyday behaviors. And we tried a lot of different communication channels. And today I will focus on just a very small part of the results of the project. So in total, we had about, we had 15 different pilots where we had different combinations of our intervention techniques. And in total, we reached out to several million people in Europe. So we had 6 countries that we were focusing on. We were in Norway, we were in Germany, in Romania, in Austria, in Italy, and in Turkey. And then we tried different types of interventions with different user partners. So in terms of municipalities, we had with us Viken County, the largest county in Norway. And we had Cluj-Napoca in Romania, and we had the metropolitan area of Izmir. And all of them used their ways of communicating with citizens to promote participation in our pilots. What I want to focus on now in the remaining 10 minutes I have is an online intervention platform that we designed during the course of the project, because we learned at some point that if we want to test all these different interventions against each other, we need to have a way to provide them in an automatic way so that the user partners are not overburdened with like rolling out the campaign. And we also wanted to have a certain control over who gets which intervention, and that we can randomize and really test the effects. So it's an automatized platform at the moment in 6 languages, where people go through a 5-week intervention period to reduce their electricity consumption. Some of the other pilots were also about transportation behavior and so on, but this one is only about reducing electricity consumption. And during that time, people were answering surveys. One a bit larger survey in the beginning, giving us information about their background, both structural, socio-demographic, but also psychological influence variables on energy consumption. And then 6 short weekly surveys where we just captured how people see the development of some of the key drivers during the 6 weeks or 5 weeks of intervention. We designed 12 different intervention packages, so 6 different interventions and then combined in different ways. And we also had 2 control groups, which was important for us to be able to find out what the effect of our interventions are as compared to all the other things that go on in society at the moment. And the whole thing was designed as a randomized control trial so that we could be sure that our effects that we see are not caused by that people were self-assigning themselves to certain interventions. So in total, 6 weeks of participation, but 5 weeks where people received intervention. So we had a baseline week in the beginning. We had a week at the end where we measured the outcome of our interventions. And then we had 3 weeks in between where we gave people different types of interventions. And what I can show you here are results of this trial of different types of interventions in well, these data here are based on responses mostly from Norway and from Germany. Now, at the moment, we are finalizing the data collection in Romania so that we get 3 countries to build on. We also learned in the project that it's very hard in some of the other countries to recruit people to participate in such a campaign, mostly because the energy culture is very different in different countries. So what you see here is what kind of variables have an effect on people's energy or electricity consumption during the weeks. And what you see is that, well, of course, most of the data collection happened in last winter. The temperature outside has a substantial effect. So the more cold it was during the days that we did our tests, the more people used energy, especially if they heated with electricity. And like more than half of the sample here is from Norway, so there a lot of electricity is used for heating. So that's a big impact on people's electricity consumption. Also, warming water has an impact on electricity consumption. Here it looks like warming water with electricity is actually having a negative effect, but that is just created by that every increase in heating degree days has actually a substantial impact here. So for people that heat with electricity, that heat their water with electricity, this has a big impact on their electricity consumption. Air conditioning, not so much important in the period that we looked at and in the countries where we have data from. That might look different the more south in Europe you get and the more to summer you get. What we also see is that the electricity price actually had an impact on electricity consumption. So the more expensive electricity was, the less of it people used. So people respond to these signals, price signals. And we know that also from general statistics that the high electricity prices in many countries last winter had an effect on people's consumption. What you also see is that charging an electric vehicle at home has, of course, an impact on electricity consumption, but also that household size, controlling for all of the other factors, has a negative impact. So the more people live in one household, the less they consume per capita per week. So the numbers you see for electricity consumption are per capita per household member per week. And then we come to the interesting part. The interesting part is how do our interventions and how do our psychological variables impact electricity consumption. So one thing that we see here is that people's intention to save energy actually make a difference. It's not a big difference, but the more people are motivated to save electricity, the more they also succeed in doing that. And then if we give them information, like targeted information, tips on how they can save electricity with easily implementable things they could easily do at home without investing too much, then we see that this also has quite a substantial effect. So they save 12 kilowatt hours per person per week if they get information how to do that. And that sums up to something like 300 kilowatt hours that people in Viken County, for example, were able to save per 4-person family per month. So that's quite substantial. We also see that some of the other interventions have an effect. So if people are getting an invitation for a competition and they accept that intervention, so they accept the invitation for a competition, then this also leads to that they are motivated to save electricity and that they succeed in doing that. But this is a bit counterbalanced by people that are invited for a competition and do not accept this invitation, because then they have almost a negative effect of that. So it almost increases significantly. So the two things that we see overall over Germany and Norway are that competition has an effect, but also give people tips on how they can save electricity is still making a difference. And then if you look more into the details, if you look into how was the situation in Norway and how was it in Germany, then you see also quite big differences here. So in Norway, the intentions to save electricity were much more important than in Germany, because also the amount of electricity consumed is much bigger per person per week in Norway than it is in Germany. The information intervention was massively more important in Norway than it was in Germany. In Norway, we also see an effect of communicating how other people succeed in saving electricity. If you can show people that other people save electricity too, that obviously motivates people in Norway, not so much in Germany. If you look at feedback interventions, that means looking at or getting some information about how you self-develop over the different weeks. This also motivated Norwegian participants in our study, but not so much German participants. Whereas the Germans were more responding to the competition in that we introduced, at least if they accepted it. But that worked also for Norwegians to a certain degree. Or if they accepted what we in my discipline call a commitment, so that they make a statement that, yes, I want to make an effort for the next week to save electricity. That was something that worked in Germany, but it didn't work in Norway. The last thing I want to show is that in Norway, at least, where people have access to smart meters and many people have an app on their phone where they could follow their hourly electricity consumption, how a part of the campaign that focused on moving away from the peak hours impacted people's electricity consumption behavior. And what you can see here is that in the first 2 weeks of our campaign, before we communicated about shifting away from the peak hours, people had the by far largest peak in the evening hours when you prepare food, when you do washing and so on. But after a couple of weeks, this evening peak was reduced quite a bit. But what is also interesting is that people are not really able to move this consumption towards the low peak hours during the night or during the day, because that would require that a part of this would be done automatically, which is already happening for people that charge their electric cars. Much of that is happening automatically during the night, and that you can see in the higher peaks during the night hours, which is quite unusual in comparison to other countries. But apparently people are not really able to move away from the peak hours if they don't have automatic technology that makes that choice for them. So I hope this could give you some taste of what we did in the Enchant project. Now we are in the last 2 months working on developing this energy wizard further. And the energy wizard, as I said, is a tool that, based on the data that we collected in the platform, tries to identify groups of people and then tries to find out which intervention or interventions work best for these groups of people. And then it would provide you with a way of easily identifying which group people would belong to, and then give you a recommendation how to target these people. I would also like to highlight 2 events that are still happening in the Enchant project. One is that we participate in the Enlit Energy Fair in Paris, and we'll be there and present more results from the project. And then we also have a whole webinar dedicated to the Enchant Energy Wizard on the 7th of December, and more information is to come. And I end here because I've probably used a bit more than 15 minutes already.
If anyone has questions, please raise the hands. Otherwise, maybe I can start with a question for you, Christian. It was really interesting, your presentation on behavioral change and how it works. And I was wondering, what do you call competition? I don't remember exactly what was written, but it's competition something. Could you please give more details on that? Because the other ones, campaign, social norms, commitments, was quite clear, but this one I have a doubt.
Okay, so what we used is a competitive element. So we asked people in the second week that, well, wouldn't it be fun to like compete in your energy savings with other people that are motivated? And if people said, yes, I want to do that, then they were in the competition group, and then they would see in the dashboard of their version of the net site a ranking list of people in the same group they are in, and where they are in this ranking. So we had some challenges with data protection. So it's only a code there. So we are not allowed to say that, okay, this is that person, but we say that, okay, here we have participant number 457 and you are 813, and 457 saved so much more than you did in this week. So now you're on the second place or on the third place. And then the next week you would get an updated version of this list. So that's what we call a competition here. Some of our user partners used also prizes to motivate people to participate in the campaign. For example, Viken County had a number of prizes like a bicycle or an EV charger or something like that people could win if they participated for the whole 5 weeks. But that's not the competition that I was talking about as an intervention. So this competition was only about being higher in the ranking list in a way.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And maybe Gerard, how do you see? Esther, I see that. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a question for Christian. I'm not sure if you have already explained it. Sorry, but what is the stage of development of the platform? I mean, have you already developed and being used and tested in the case studies, or?
Yes, we did. So we developed the platform and tested it the last 1.5 years. So now we have data in the platform from 2,500 households that went through it in 3 different countries. And at the end of the project, the platform in its current status is in a way finished, but of course we have many ideas how to develop it further. And we also luckily got some funding in Austria, where we are now able to integrate this platform with smart meter reading. So as it is now, people would need to read their electricity meters themselves, which on the one hand is interesting because they then, by doing that alone, they get a better understanding of their electricity consumption. But on the other hand, this is also prone to a lot of errors. So we see a lot of wrong numbers there. And if you could get it from smart meters directly, that would improve that, but that would also take away this aspect that we suspect is also quite helpful. So we would need to come up with a way to communicate that back. And we are also planning to hopefully, through collaboration with, for example, other electricity providers or municipalities, to set up more campaigns in the future that collect data from more countries so that we could feed our machine learning algorithms with more data than 2,500 households, which is in a way okay, but it would be much more helpful if we had 10 times, 100 times as many participants.
But is it right now the platform is open source? I mean, is like can we access to this platform or is it?
Well, it's not 100% open source, but it's open to like build new campaigns on it. So we collaborate with the programmers of the platform to set up, if there's an interest, we can set up new campaigns, and it wouldn't require the same amount of investment like developing the platform did.
Yeah, of course. Okay, thank you. It's really interesting, the project and the interventions and the data that you have collected. So congrats.
Thank you
for this.
Thank you, Esti. Gerard, maybe if you want to ask your question, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. I want to ask a question to Christian. So mainly it's about your findings in the analysis of the behavior of the users. So one of the problems or the topics that you want to solve is a bit the peak shaving, but across different countries. This is something I did. So I've been working with peak shaving, but not working with several countries at once. You are finding some hourly shift of these peaks according to, because you were talking about difference in culture behavior across different countries. So you are finding some differences in the energy consumption by cultural or scheduled time from the.
Well, the peak shaving was just a side focus of the project, and we only looked at that in Norway because in all of the other participating countries, people don't have really access to the hourly electricity consumption data. So in Norway, we have the special situation that people have hourly electricity tariffs. So they pay for the hours they use electricity in, which was not the case in all of the other countries we were in. And that also means that Norway has an infrastructure where people via apps can actually access this information. So they can see how much electricity did I use yesterday between 7 and 8. And this information is not available in the other countries, or it's really hard to find. So for that one, we only focused on Norway, and that alone says already a lot about cultural differences. And then just to tell an anecdote, when we tried to roll out our platform campaign in Turkey, our Turkish partner said this won't work in Turkey. People don't have any relation to their electricity consumption, and I couldn't believe it. I said, okay, we try. And then we rolled it out to several million customers of a large electricity provider, and we got 10 people that registered for the campaign, and none of them delivered a single meter reading. And that is simply because people have no idea where electricity meters are and how to read them, because they are somewhere outside their apartments and they don't have to care about it because electricity prices in Turkey are heavily subsidized for political reasons. So that was a massive cultural difference. And then we have also tried to recruit people in Italy, and there we just ran into problems with like trusting anything that looks like an authority. So if you try to recruit people as an electricity provider or as a municipality in Italy, you have a much harder time than if you do that in Norway, for example, where there's a high level of trust in such institutions. And these differences we found in the project, and they are really interesting.